yes, here we are. It is Super Wild Card Weekend here on Football Friday, presented by Wolf Spreads. And yeah, it is super. Look at this. We got a full house here as we get you ready for the NFL postseason, which is just around the corner. And I know, obviously the playoffs are here, but all the talk this week, guys, has been about the coaching firings, let goes, whatever you want to say, both college and pro. It's been quite the week. I mean, obviously we've coming off a stretch where we just had Pete Carroll, Nick Saban in college, and Bill Belichick all leaving in the span of 24 hours. So obviously it's something we have to discuss really quick. Ben obviously is our Patriot fan. And if you want more about this, definitely go check out his videos that he's made on ETB Network on Facebook and Twitter. Ben, real quick, I know it's been about a little over 24 hours now since the news of Belichick. How you feeling about it?
Yeah, obviously it's mixed. The way that yesterday kind of went with Carroll obviously moving on and Saban retiring, I just knew that something potentially could have potentially happened. But yeah, right when I saw that notification this morning, waking up, it's crazy. Obviously, I think it was time for it to happen. It's been a while after Brady left. It's pretty much hasn't been great. Smooth sailing, I'd say, for a while. But can't thank him enough. All the memories. Obviously, the greatest coach to ever coach this game. If you guys don't think so, you can talk me off the air, but I think most of y'all agree. But yeah, no, absolute legend. Gonna miss him. Obviously, going to games ever since I've been little, just seeing him coaching and just the personal belief that he's going to get it done with the team, and not only just the coaching matter, but just the overall impact of the whole region of the city. You look at the Celtics posting stuff today, the Red Sox, everybody in Boston sports essentially just saying thank you for everything, just like Brady was. So obviously it's a very somber day, but it's obviously a day of celebration. And I just can't thank him enough for everything. And just the overall dynasty was absolutely something special, and I won't forget.
Yeah, and you've seen that now 3 times in 24 hours because Belichick, and then the news of Nick Saban down there in Alabama, and Pete Carroll in Seattle, who've been 3 legends of the sport, both collegiate and pro. So yeah, pretty incredible, and it's definitely going to create for quite an off season when we're already talking about 1/4 of the NFL teams looking for a head coach going into the 2024 season. And you know what? It may not be done yet because based on some results that we see here from Super Wild Card Weekend, we might be adding another name or 2 to that list. So that is one thing, one of the many things to watch here as we get you started here on Super Wild Card Weekend. Of course, we are presented by Wolf Spreads. Nick?
Yeah, so obviously we've been having fun with Wolf Spreads as we continue to expand, and hopefully we have a nice long agreement with them that we're working on to expand. Are you looking to get involved in the action while rooting for your favorite team? Have you ever had a friendly debate on who can pick more games correctly? Does all this talk about parlays, lines, overs, and unders and make your head spin? And you want to learn more about the sports betting hoopla? Gamble with us and come check out Wolf Spreads. Like we've been telling you all season, running a sports betting competition completely free on the Wolf Spreads app. Here's how it works. Everybody gets 2,000 fantasy dollars. That's fake money to bet on NFL games with whoever can profit most with their 2K bankroll wins. It certainly was not me last week. And if you're not an NFL fan, don't worry. Wolf Spreads has competitions available for the NBA, MLB, NHL, college football, and basketball. Put fantasy dollars on the over-under, the money line, or the spreads, competing for bragging rights with your fellow players while having additional fun watching sports and not risking your house in the process. Wolf Spreads, sports betting for friends who love the action. Let's go.
Absolutely. And Nick, I know you had a rough week. I had a strong week on Wolf Spreads last week, so our numbers have flipped there. But let me go over real quick the results of a regular season here in terms of our ETB competition. If you're just joining us for the first time, so what happened was we picked games, obviously, against the spread. You get 1 point if you get the team correct. You get a point if you get the spread correct. And every week, we must use 1 bench lock on a game, and that is a double or nothing play. So you either get 4 points or you get no points. So based on all of that, the final results of the regular season in terms of our point standings, I ended up out in front with 348 points. Tom finished in second with 344. There was one big game that decided it last week. And
that last Cardinal score.
The Seahawks Cardinal game was the big one because you put that as your bench lock with Seattle. I went with Arizona, and I ended up with the 1 point, and obviously you didn't score there. But it was a very, very close neck-and-neck competition. And even down the line with everybody else, Nick D finished with 333, Zan 332, Paul 325, Nick 325, Ben 323. Now, we all finished over 500, so that was a great positive for everybody. I know last year when I did this competition, I couldn't sniff 500, so I'm proud about that.
We are the AFC North. We are the AFC North.
Yes, and a big congratulations to Nick DiMartino, who ended up with the best overall record at 152, 109, and 11. So that's how our win-loss and our point total standing now. A couple of other trends that I saw here when going through this. Our bench lock records this season. 4 of us went 11-7. Yours truly, Tom, Nick Morgasen, and Paul. Nick D went 10-8. Ben went 10-8, and Zan, you joined us later in the year, but you still did very well at 8-6. Now, my 11-7, I started 0-4 and finished up 11-7. Tom started 4-1, and Nick Morgasen at one point was 10-3. So it's been very, very streaky there. All right. Sunday Night Football against the spread. I went 13-5, Tom 8-10, Nick Morgasen 10-8, Paul 10-8, Nick D 9-9, Ben 8-10, Zan 9-5. Monday night, I went 8-9-2, Tom went 9-8-2, Nick Morgasen 7-10-2, Paul 9-8-2, Nick D 11-6-2, Ben. This was the one you struggled at 4-13-2. And Zan 4-9. So we have that. Now, a couple of other things. In instances that somebody was a lone wolf this year, it's a phrase we used a lot this season, the lone wolf. I used it 69. We used it 69 times. The lone wolf was 24, 44, and 1. And then in instances where it was a clean sweep, 64 games this season we had a clean sweep, and we ended up 37-27. And then finally, best individual week win-loss record against the spread. That was done by me just last week at 13-3. And the best individual point score was Paul last week with 27 points. So that is how our 2023 regular season went. But you know what? Let's wipe it clean and let's start new because now it is the postseason. And here in Super Wildcard Weekend, we've got 6 games involving 12 teams over 3 days. So are you guys ready to do this thing?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. And Zan, it's a Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge, Catherine Tappan special on NBC on Saturday afternoon as Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns take on CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans at NRG Stadium, and the Browns a 2-point road favorite.
Yeah, I mean, the storylines going into this game are massive. It's 2 teams that Deshaun Watson is very close ties to. It's 2 teams that historically are not very good in the postseason. So it's quite a weird matchup to say the least. And it's a game that happened a couple of months ago where you had some quarterback issues. And this time you're seeing a quarterback in CJ Stroud that's going to be playing his first playoff game against someone who maybe you could have considered Joe Flacco irrelevant a couple years ago, but he's partially the reason why the Cleveland Browns have had such a good year in Deshaun Watson's absence. So it should be a very, very exciting game for sure. This is one of those games where you don't really know who to pick, but I do think that this line is begging you to take the Houston Texans, considering how well they played offensively last week against the Colts. And thanks to Gaff at the end of the game, the Texans were able to win that one. But I don't know. This is going to be a good game, but something tells me Cleveland can eke this one out. I just don't think they will, but I do think that Houston covers the spread. So I'm going to go thumbs middle, and I think that Joe Flacco mania continues into next week. But it may only be 1 week of fun for Browns fans because they might be up with a difficult test, and once you know all my playoff picks, you'll know where I'm going with it. So we're going to go the Browns to win, but Houston to cover in the first game.
Wait a minute. So you think this is going to be a 1-point game?
I do, yeah.
Sam's threading the needle right out of the gate here in Super Wildcard Weekend. So let's start you with a fun fact here. This is the first time the Browns are favorites in a playoff game since the 1994 wild card game against the Patriots. Ben, who was the head coach of the Browns that year?
Ooh, well, Bill, maybe.
Bill
'Cause
Belichick. That's exactly right.
I mean, you're essentially putting me on the spot. The Browns, he coached for the Browns
There you
before.
go. I'll give you a point just for that. No, I can't do that because then I have to give that to everybody. All right.
Take it.
As far as this game, see, this is, I'm telling you, I'm going to struggle with a lot of these games this week, but I look at this and C.J. Stroud to me is better than any quarterback the Browns have faced since Flacco Mania took off there in Ohio. Now, remember, he missed their Week 16 battle when he was dealing with a concussion. You look at Stroud, he's thrown just 5 interceptions. A big reason that Houston has a major advantage in the turnovers. In fact, how so? The Texans are plus 10 in the turnover margin this season. The Browns are a minus 9. And then you look at some other numbers here from this year. The Browns are allowing 29.6 points per game in away games, which is the most in the league. They're 3-5 on the road. I tell you what, I got a weird feeling here. I don't think this is a big stage for C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans, to me, is the coach of the year this year. Let's start with some chaos. I'm going to take the Texans here in an upset special to get things rolling here on Super Wild Card Weekend. Getting 2 points at home. I know this line was at 2.5. I would have liked it there to at least get that extra half a point. But I'm going to go with the Texans here to keep this magical ride going this year. And I think either of these two teams could very quietly make a deep run here in the postseason. So that's what we're going to go with. I'm going to take the Texans plus 2 here on Saturday afternoon to Saturday evening. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm going to go with you, Johnny. I think I'm going to take the Texans here at plus 2. Obviously, the Texans didn't have C.J. Stroud the last time they played the Browns a couple of weeks ago. The Browns, obviously, their defense has been spectacular all year. Joe Flacco, obviously, has been really good in the absence of Deshaun Watson and Thompson. But, yeah, I mean, C.J. Stroud coming back, obviously the big win he had in Indy last week. I think that they're going to roll here. They're at home. Another thing, too, guys, is you realize with the Texans, they've been in a lot of wild card weekends at home, and they fared fairly all right. I mean, they beat the Bills, I think, a couple years ago against them. So I'm going to take them. I'm going to take the Texans here at plus 2.
Nick Morgasen, what about you?
I'm riding the train on this one, too. I'm taking the Texans as an upset over the Browns. I know the Browns played well all year. They still struggled a little bit offensively. Flacco has thrown some picks when he's in there, and that's kind of where I struggle offensively with the team. But it's a lot of pressure. You do it in the regular season, fine. Now you got to ramp it up times 10 when you're in the playoffs. I know you have Stroud. Stroud's a rookie, but I think the energy from Stroud is going to be the way to go. Now, they have to make sure they're healthy because they were fighting injuries over the last couple of weeks with Tank and with Nico Collins and all those injuries. But I just think the youth and the energy out of Stroud is better than Flacco, at least for my sake. So I'm going to take the Texans plus 2.
Nick D.
I'm totally going against you guys. I love the Browns. Flacco has looked amazing. I mean, it used to be a joke when people said when people talk about Joe Flacco being elite. Now he actually is elite. He's been averaging like over 300 yards a game so far. Now, I'm not saying he's going to keep this up forever, but you know what? Football is a game. All sports really are often a game of streaks and who is hot at the right time. The San Francisco Giants, they won in 2014, not because they were the best team all year, because they were the best at the right time. Ohio State won the national championship that one year because they were hot at the right time. It feels like the same thing right now. Joe Flacco is like one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league right now, not to mention the fact that Houston is still a young team and they still are very flawed. I mean, CJ Stroud is a rookie quarterback. DeMeco Ryans is a rookie head coach, and Joe Flacco has years of experience. I mean, I can't just discount all of those other factors, but it's mainly because of how good Flacco is right now, and and right now the Browns are just a better team.
That's all fair. Can't argue that too. I could see that going as well. But Tom, go ahead.
And I'm going to join Nick DiMartino in this one, and I'm going to say the Browns, and I'm going to take the money on it, but not because of the direction that he's going in. Do I think that Joe Flacco has been playing poorly? Absolutely. Do I think Joe Flacco has been a reason why this Browns team has been able to continue to succeed over the last month of the season? Absolutely. But there, number one, Nick is right about the idea that Houston is just, too experienced. Stroud is still a rookie, and that team is flawed. The team is playing. The Houston Texans are playing great. Ryans definitely is the coach of the year. But you know what? I think Stefanski also made a case this year for coach of the year, considering the fact that here's Cleveland, no Deshaun Watson, no Nick Chubb, and they still managed to be one of the best teams in the AFC. They didn't finish too far behind the Ravens in the division, and the Ravens are the number one seed in the AFC. And by the way, Zan, I don't know when you were going in the direction of what you were going in, but may I remind you that the last time the Ravens and Browns played each other during this season, it was the Browns who came out on top. The Browns hold a victory over the Ravens in this season, but everyone is forgetting one thing, and it actually does stretch a little bit over into Joe Flacco's previous experience with the Super Bowl, and everyone joked about that he was elite. What else did that Ravens team have that this Browns team also has? A phenomenal defense. And here, by the way, just so you know, I'm looking at the last month of the season for Houston. They took on the Browns on Christmas Eve and lost 36-22. And 2 weeks before that, they took on another team that has a phenomenal defense, but maybe not so much a phenomenal team. One you're very familiar with, Nick Morgasen, in the New York Jets. And the New York Jets spanked the Houston Texans. I have major concerns about Stroud in this offense going up against a highly elite super caliber defense like the Browns have, because they struggle like the Jets did. They struggle with the Browns in the season. I don't know if CJ Stroud and the Texans offense are going to be able to get past that defense. Also, may I remind you, when we talk about experience, some of those pieces on the Cleveland defense were there just a couple of years ago when the Browns got to the playoffs for the first time in what felt like forever, beat Pittsburgh, and then came this close to defeating the Kansas City Chiefs when they had to put Chad Henne in for Patrick Mahomes after he got hurt in that game. So I think, as I give all the credit to Houston, they're going to continue to develop. They're going to be a powerhouse very soon. Right now, in this game, it's Cleveland's time.
I want to push back on you, Tom, real quick on that, because you rattled off those two games. Those two games were not with Stroud. Stroud got the Jet game, and then Stroud didn't play in the first meeting with Cleveland.
Yep.
He did. He still was the top performer technically on the Chiefs, because I guess they just ran the ball.
Well, yeah, no, he didn't play in the Browns meeting the first time, and he did play against the Jets, and that was the game he got concussed in.
Okay,
not to discount anything, but this is also the best quarterback they're going to be they face since Flacco had played. Paul, what about you?
But then, sorry, Johnny, I want to push back a little bit then. But then there is that concern that he may have never played against a defense like we're going to see against the Browns.
That's possible. That's another thing too. That's true. This is the playoffs, but we'll see. Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Tom and Nick. I'm going to go with the Browns on this one, and they pretty much hit every point that needs to be made. I think that when it comes down to it, the Browns have a really good team. They have a tremendous defense. They're one of the best defenses in football, and it's much safer to err on the side of experience rather than the unknown of a good young team. I think the Texans are going to be one of the better teams in the AFC for a long time, because CJ Stroud seems like he's going to be the guy. D'Amico Ryan seems like he's going to be a great head coach. But what the Browns have been able to put together, they've been able to do just about everything right on offense with Flacco. They have the veteran weapons, and they also have the defense too. They have Myles Garrett. All of these guys have playoff experience as well. When Tom was alluding to when they were able to beat the Steelers and then almost beat the Chiefs. If it didn't come down to Chad Henne throwing his body on the line, they probably would have ended up beating the Chiefs in that game and advancing. So I like the Browns in this one. They're hungry. They haven't made a run. This team has been built to win for the last several years now, and they haven't been able to put it together when it comes to playoff time. I think that at the very least, they're going to pull this game out. This is going to be a very tough call for the Houston Texans, even at home in this one, because the Browns are not going to be an easy team that's going to turn over and die. So I think that the Browns are going to end up coming away with this one, but the Texans do have a good future.
Can I just throw one caveat? Oh, good.
See, and this is exactly why I'm so torn, because CJ could play the same way he played a week ago, the same way he played a month ago when he had that one stretch when he was playing like he was the rookie of the year, and at the same time, the Browns defense could go in there and shut the whole thing up. That's why this game is too close to call, and you could argue that this line is exactly where it needs to be, but you could also argue on the same wavelength that this line could be less than what it currently is right now. This is why this game is so close. And to be quite honest, even though the Houston Texans are the home team, let's not forget this is a domed stadium here. So for the moment, at least this week, the advantage for these two teams is nearly the same. So,
and I guarantee you, some Browns fans are going to be well traveled and go over there to Houston.
I agree with that.
Morgasen, what did you want to say real quick?
I was just going to say, be careful, even though it's domed, rain was getting in during the national championship game. But at the same time, I wanted to say, I don't know if anyone believes in jinxes, but Roger Goodell is going to be at NRG Stadium for this game. So does that change anybody's pick?
Nope.
Just saying.
No,
Hold on,
I'm gonna roll with what I have here. That's what it is. So in game one, Roger Goodell strikes again. Well, in game one, we've got a split decision there at NRG Stadium in Houston. Well, Paul, we ended with you in game one, and we'll start with you here in game two. It is, in fact, a Mike Tirico, Jason Garrett, Kaylee Hartung special on Peacock as the Miami Dolphins face your Kansas City Chiefs in bone chilly Kansas City at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, and the Chiefs are a 4.5-point favorite, Paul.
Yeah, this is going to be, this is the kind of matchup that I think the NFL really wanted in the first round of the playoffs. You got Tyreek Hill coming back to Arrowhead for the first time. They played the Dolphins this season. It was technically a Kansas City home game, but it was in Germany, so there wasn't really any home field advantage there. But you got Tyreek Hill coming back in the first round of the playoffs. He just saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl without him last year. He's hungry. The Dolphins haven't been able to beat anybody good this entire season. Just lay it out there. They haven't been able to live up to. They've had a good season, but practically every difficult game that they've played, they've lost. And this is what it's going to come down to. They have the ultimate situation going on in Kansas City, especially with the weather too. You've got the Dolphins, all of these guys used to playing in warm weather. Tua has played his entire career and college career in warm weather, and enter the negative 10 degrees, snowy, all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for the Dolphins. And the Chiefs this has been probably the most uncertain Chiefs team that I've seen since before Mahomes took over, since probably like 2017. I thought that they were going to be a lot better. They ended up losing early, but they got off to that good start probably since like 2016 or so, where you're going kind of week by week and you really have no idea what team's going to show up there. The defense has been amazing all season long, but the offense has struggled with the drop passes and all that kind of stuff. And even the offensive line hasn't looked good at some points. But all eyes are really going to be on the Dolphins, I think. The Chiefs have absolutely dominated the NFL over the past few years, and the Dolphins are trying to prove why they're back. And everything that goes with it. I like this matchup a lot. I was rooting for this matchup. I did not want to get the Bills first round. I wanted to get the Dolphins. So I'm happy with this. This game is going to be close. but I will definitely take Chiefs at -4.5. I think they come away with this by probably 6 or 7 points, maybe a touchdown, a little bit less than a touchdown. I think that they're going to be able to pull this one off and advance to the next round. It depends on who they match up with in the next round. Not sure how ecstatic I am about that, but this is going to be a big test for the Dolphins, and it's going to be one that they're going to have to hope they play almost perfect football to get by.
I just want to add clarification, by the way, Paul. So since the Chiefs are the 3 seed, most likely that would mean, unless the Bills lose in upset fashion to the Steelers, it's probably going to be the Bills in the second round.
Yep. Drama.
And that exactly. That'll be something else. That's one that I do not know which way it's going to go, but as for this week, we'll see. I mean, Bills got to get by the Steelers. I don't know, but you never know with football.
Tom, the man of many talents there in the top right corner, still keeping our playoff scenarios and playoff machine up there. I appreciate that, Tom. By the way, thank you again for filling in for me last week. You did a phenomenal job. I almost thought about taking this week off because you did such a great job too, but that didn't work. You might be back under control, though, in 2 weeks. I'll just say that. Zain Bando.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, this is the coldest game of the week, one of the coldest NFL playoff games in recent memory, a game that I'm sure there are going to be a lot of angry people that are probably going to be unable to see this game or will refuse to pay just the brief trial subscription to see it. So the NFL might get a little bit of backlash from that, but to me, this game just isn't fair for the simple fact that you're asking the Miami Dolphins to leave Miami Gardens, Florida, to leave their home base, to go over to Kansas City, Missouri, where it's going to be sold out and literally 90% red and 10% turquoise and white. The Dolphins don't stand a chance. I think the Chiefs win this game. I think they cover. However, I'm not going to make it my lock because I have another game that I feel a little bit more confident in, but I just think the Tyreek Hill revenge tour ends here. If the game was in a little bit of a warmer climate or maybe some sort of a neutral site-esque stadium, I think I would feel a little differently. But I think the Chiefs are on a mission to do everything they can to repeat. And I think the request to go back to the Super Bowl starts this week. So give me the Chiefs to win this game and cover the spread over Miami. And simply put, they're the better team, so they should win.
So, Zan, first of all, I just want to say I don't feel bad for the Dolphins because they did this to themselves. They had a chance to win that division and they completely blew it. 56
Good
points.
Point.
So that it's almost like punishment for doing that. Number one. Number two, let me just get this right out of the way. This is my lock of the week here. I cannot tell you how much I love the Chiefs laying the 4.5 points in this game because, first of all, the National Weather Service saying that it's going to be dangerously cold Saturday night. They're talking about wind chills of -30, and that right there will slow down the fastest players of any team. So like a Tyreek Hill, that cheetah effect, that's going to be put into slow motion with that weather. And also, let's just roll over this too. The Miami defense is completely decimated. They had to go out there and sign 3 players off the scrap heap. That's how desperate they are. And one way that teams have slowed down Patrick Mahomes this year is beating the tackles with their pass rush. Well, if you don't have a pass rush or the ability to get to the quarterback, that's not going to get the job done here. So it's a bad spot for the Dolphins, but again, they don't have anybody to blame for themselves in this one. I'm gonna lay the 4.5 and put my lock of the week here on the Chiefs. Even if it's a little bit of a lower scoring game because of the cold weather, I still think they wouldn't get this one done by at least a touchdown. I'm going to take the Chiefs here to win, cover, and advance. Ben?
Well, first of all, guys, I don't think the Taylor Swift's curse is going to be happening this game because I know that the Chiefs have had that blues the last couple of weeks. But, the Dolphins here in this case, they have not shown, like Paul was mentioning, they haven't shown all year that they've been able to be good teams. You saw last week they had a chance potentially against the Bills team that's been playing really well the last couple of weeks, and they came up short. And the thing about Tua, guys, is he's not a good cold weather quarterback. I think that there's been times in the past where he's shown it, and there just has not been, to me, a case of I can essentially go against the Chiefs here in this matchup. I think the Chiefs are going to run the football a lot. I think it's going to force the Dolphins essentially to play behind, which I don't think they want to play behind. and I don't think it's going to be my lock of the week, but I do really like the Chiefs here at the 4.5. I think it's a really good number. I think they win between 7 and 10 points. And I think the Dolphins will probably score within like 13, 17 points, but I think that the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are going to have at least a couple touchdowns. They actually remind me of the 2019 Patriots in a way, where the Patriots offense specifically is really heavily relied on Gronkowski and Edelman, but nothing really else around, especially in the playoffs. But I think that with Kelsey and Pacheco, they'll be able to kind of work things around against a Dolphins team, like Johnny mentioned, that's very depleted. So, yeah, give me the Chiefs to cover at -4.5. And, Paul, you guys will more likely than not, we'll see if they got a rematch against the Bills. So, yeah, give me the Chiefs to cover.
Nick Morrison, what about you?
I think we're being too modest. I think that this game is going to be a possible blowout just because I think the Chiefs are an obvious cover and they are a lock for me. By the way, like we've all been saying, Miami is a terrible cold weather team. They just do not play well in the elements. They're so used to being in 70 to 75 degree weather that they just don't know how to play in any other situations. The way I look at the Chiefs also, it kind of reminds me of like the Warriors in the NBA, where they kind of treat the regular season as getting by, winning games. And then when they get to the playoffs, that's when the second, third, fourth gear kicks in the playoffs. And that's where I see the Chiefs are. Now, I agree with what people are saying that the Chiefs are not as good because their receiver core has been banged up. Pacheco has been banged up all year long on the running back side. But the Dolphins they show it in the track record. It's going to be -3 in wind chill. Like you're going to have to wrap them up in bubble wrap just to keep them on the field. But everyone's saying this is the biggest game. We're missing one other headline of this game. If it's the game of the week, why is it exclusively on Peacock?
So that way the streaming platforms can get their money and their subscribers.
But if it's the game of the week, it should be on TV.
Well, I want to give a shout out to that one Kansas Chief player who gave out 90 subscriptions to Peacock.
That was cool. I'll give you that. But yeah I think this is going to be a blowout.
And also, if you sign up for Instacart, you get 30 free days of Peacock. You just have to make sure to cancel it before the 30 days.
But yeah, I like Mahomes over Tua. And also, we saw in the Bills game that he just did not. They don't play well in big games. Can we all admit for a fact that they shrink in big games when they've needed it most?
Absolutely.
Well, too in December, like when it matters most in the crunch time of the season, it's like people want to talk about the Dolphins like early on, September, October, and like they're going crazy. But like, oh, is this the team to beat? And then you look at it December the last couple of years. That's the eye test, and the eye test has not been passed.
I left out one other thing that everyone else is not saying either. Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle, both questionable for the game.
Yeah.
Also.
Nick, Mostert, questionable, but I guess it'll lean to play. Waddle, out.
And Xavier Howard's out.
Who?
Xavier Howard. He's out.
How do you win without Waddle? I know Tyreek Hill is great, but you could double or triple team Tyreek Hill and win. So without Waddle and Mostert's not going to be 100%, this is an easy lock. Chiefs with the money.
Mother Nature's going to slow him down too. Nick D, what do you have?
I like the Chiefs mainly because my biggest reason I would say is the weather. Now, I don't think it's going to be a blowout because I don't really know how many. I don't think the Chiefs really could blow out Miami. Mainly because the Chiefs have been kind of sloppy lately and whatever, but also because the weather is going to hurt both teams' offenses. It's going to be hard to score, and it's even for a team like the Chiefs that's a little more used to it, it's going to be hard to really to score an exorbitant amount of points in this type of weather. I think the thing is that the Dolphins have a tremendous offense. Arguably the best offense in the NFL. Their defense is below average at best. Their defense is not even arguably below average. This is definitely going to hurt the Dolphins. The weather, not just that they're not as they're not a good cold weather team, but also the fact that their offense, they rely so much on their offense. It's going to hurt the Dolphins a lot more than it hurts the Chiefs. So I really do like the Chiefs -4.5, although I don't feel great about it. but I still like the Chiefs. I mean, the Dolphins, like you said, they always come up short in these games, except for that game against Dallas. And I have no reason to believe it's going to be any different against the Chiefs.
And Tom, what about you?
I mean, look, it's sad to say because going into this at the end of last week, be it that the Dolphins had lost to the Bills, the Chiefs team was just so weak that I said, in a normal stance game, if it wasn't going to be -3, even at Arrowhead, I would have picked the Dolphins. But Dolphins are coming into this game like we've established. Mostert questionable. Waddle unlikely going to play. Both teams, you said, completely banged up, Johnny. That they had to sign a couple of guys off, as you put it, the scrap heap. And the cold conditions are just going to really ruin it for Miami. So, and as you guys said, and it's undebatable, they can't win in the big games. When they go up against opponents, Miami always seems to crack for some reason. Case in point, what happened last week in Buffalo. Against Buffalo, pardon me, in Miami. But I can't say that this game is going to be a blowout because this game is going to, as Nick D said, impact both offenses. And the Chiefs' offense is already not good enough. You talk about how maybe the Chiefs should have to run the ball, but as Nick Morgasen said, Isaiah Pacheco's banged up himself. He's not 100% healthy. And these Chiefs receivers, unless your name is Travis Kelce, you can't really depend on them. So this is one where, I can't necessarily put a lock one way or another simply because of the weather and simply because these are two underperforming teams. It's a shame to say that when you have Patrick Mahomes, and on the other team, you really have one of the better offensive units with Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, Mostert, HN. So this is kind of sad. So just because of the weather conditions and of the Dolphins, I'll go with the Chiefs. I'll take the money like all of you guys, but I have some questions. And, I do have a Wolf Spreads bet on this game, but I think one of you already brought it up. You could tell in the direction that I'm going to go with it.
I think I know where you're going with it. We'll save that. So, yeah.
Oh, by the way, Dan. I mean, it's kind of perfect what you said that. I didn't know about the Instacart offer. It's kind of perfect. You get your groceries and you get a streaming platform subscription on the side.
Yeah, and speaking of where I live in the Chicago suburbs, it's going to be exactly 0 degrees on Sunday and 4 degrees on Saturday. So that Instacart subscription might come in handy for people who are in the Midwest and Northeast and that sort, and that are going to get several inches of snow and the whole things. Well, actually, when you think about it from an investment perspective, it actually isn't that bad.
By the way, this is not a paid partnership. Just throwing that out there.
And on that note, I will pass. So clean sweep there in Kansas City. Well, speaking of weather could impact this game, Nick Morgasen, it's Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson, and Jay Feely on CBS as we go to Orchard Park in Buffalo, New York, as Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers take on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are a 9.5-point home favorite.
This is an interesting one. Even though I like the Bills, Josh Allen has a case of the picks, like a bad sickness of picks. Like I think in the Dolphins game he threw 2 more, or actually 3 more picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. He's forcing way more throws this year than I've ever seen in his career. Was it true that they said he had a pick in every game this year also? I thought I heard that also.
He had basically every game, I think, but like 2.
So I think the Bills, they're obviously the better team. That's not a question in my mind. And the Steelers, their quarterback situation has been a mess all year. Obviously, with Pickett being out and hurt, and obviously not playing, and Mason Rudolph playing, I'm taking the Bills. I'm going to take them to cover, but it's a big number. But I'll take them to cover.
Nick D?
Yeah, I like the Bills. The Steelers barely snuck into the playoffs. Like I said, the Bills are a very hot team right now. They played with this extreme sense of urgency towards the end of the regular season. They're just a much better team. I feel like they should be able to win this by 2 touchdowns or more.
Tom, what about you?
I'm also going to go with the Bills on this one. I think this one's kind of easy because, yeah, you can say all you want about Josh Allen and his picks, but over the last month, and, after that really bad start where there were a lot of concerns about the Bills team, they completely have turned things around. They come into this postseason with a lot of momentum. There was a chance entering week 18, they could have been out of the playoffs completely. They could have lost a playoff spot to the Steelers. And now here they are, number 2 seed, home field advantage for the rest of the playoffs up until a point where if they end up playing the Ravens in an AFC championship game. So, I mean, the Bills have a lot of momentum. The Bills have a lot of control. Will the weather impact this? I think it will as well. I think this is going to be a little bit of a struggle on both ends as well because of all of the snow in the area. I don't think that, honestly, this is going to be a very high-scoring game. So I'm going to say the line kind of concerns me because I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But I think there's a chance, honestly, that they could basically shut out or near shut out the Steelers. So I'll take the money on this one. I think this could end up being like a 14-3 kind of score or something along those lines.
Paul?
Yeah, I think that's this is a really tough game for the Steelers. I mean, it's going to be in Buffalo. Steelers really overperformed this season. They're going to have Mason Rudolph back out there. Their team on paper just does not look great. But the Bills, I mean, Bills were up and down. They're hot right now, but Josh Allen's been making some questionable decisions all season. I trust Mike Tomlin and I trust the Steelers in the playoffs too much to say that it's going to be this much of a blowout. I think the Bills are going to win, but I'm going to take the Steelers at plus 9.5. I think it's going to be a closer game closer and lower scoring game than we think it's going to be. I just can't imagine the Steelers getting run off the field. I think that it hasn't happened much at all this season. And they have not had a great team at all this year, and they ended up finishing 9-8 again. So I think that the Steelers are going to be able to stay within the 9.5 spread, but the Bills are going to end up winning.
Zan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as Paul here. I don't think Mike Tomlin barely squeaked into the playoffs just to squeak into the playoffs. I think his team wants to play with pride in place. They want to play for something, and even though they're going on the road and they're facing a much better offense, I just think there's something about Tomlin's teams where every couple of years, Pittsburgh sneaks in, people kind of write them off, and maybe they end up winning a game they aren't supposed to. I don't think they'll win this game, but very similar to Paul, I would think that the Steelers will do enough to keep it inside the 9.5. I think it's that 9.5 that's enticing to me. If this game was 10, 11, or 12, I think I would lean more towards the Bills side, but it's that half point for me that I think is going to do it. And I think the Bills win, but the Steelers do enough to cover simply because I think they're going to play inspired football. And I think that the longer the game goes on and the more sustained drives that they have where they're chewing up tons of clock, I think it's going to make the game a lot more interesting and maybe have some chaos mid-third or the quarter, early fourth quarter where Buffalo, you have to come from behind to win. But with all that being said, the Bills win, but the Steelers cover the spread.
Yeah, I totally agree with Paul and Zan. Absolutely, I'm grabbing the Steelers and the points in this game. Let's talk about the weather again, because the winds that they're expecting there at Orchard Park is going to nullify the Bills' greatest advantage, which is the downfield passing game, and that will turn this game into trench warfare, which I think suits Pittsburgh. And if you look at these two teams, Pittsburgh looks like they have new life with Mason Rudolph under the center. If you look at the Buffalo Bills, yes, they were 3 games out of the division with 5 games to play. Yes, they came back and did that, but they didn't breeze by the Chargers and the Patriots, and then they played Miami, who was playing pretty much a skeleton crew there down the stretch. So, I think this is a lower scoring game, and I think the weather helps Pittsburgh inside that number. Now, of course, I'd love to have TJ Watt in this game too. That would really make me feel a little bit more confident in saying that. Him not being there is going to be a big blow in this one. I don't think they win though. I think this is more of a touchdown game, if that. So I'm gonna say the Bills win, but I will grab the 9.5 with Pittsburgh to keep this inside that number. And you were talking about the total time, so let me give you an interesting nugget here. So the total number started at 41, and that number has been dropping all week to the point where we're doing this now, and the total is 35.5.
Yeah, and Wolf spreads
come from 41 down to 35.5 in less than a week's time. And in the playoffs, that is telling you something, that in the playoffs, the number drops that much in less than a week.
Johnny, it's actually, I think, at like 33 or something like that.
I mean, you usually don't see spreads, fluctuate a lot in the postseason in a week, but the total number coming down as much as it has all week, I think is telling you something. I think the weather's going to play a big role.
35.5.
35.5. All right. So Johnny, I'm gonna pull a switch. I'm gonna still say the Bills win, but I'm gonna flip. I'm gonna go Steelers.
Okay. That's fine. Let me go to Ben here to wrap up this game.
Yeah, obviously that point, that half point is very enticing. And after I was here with you guys, if it was like a 7-point spread, I'd probably win the Bills like outright. But now in terms of like the 9.5 is a pretty big number. And I think that the Steelers defense, they won't have Watt, but they somehow play a really good, sound defense in the playoffs when it comes to it. And I trust them in a lower scoring game where it's going to be really like bad wind chill, bad weather specifically. I remember last year, guys, Josh Allen against the Bengals at home. He didn't fare well against that Bengals defense specifically. And I think that the offense, which is going to be a lot of downfield, like Johnny mentioned, I think it's going to be really more of potentially running the football, James Cook and some other guys specifically. And the Steelers just aren't going to win because of Mason Rudolph. And no matter what the quarterback situation, I just don't trust them moving the football against this Bills defense. And the Bills obviously are running high. The Steelers obviously got in because the Jaguars find a way to fuck it up at the end. But yeah. But I'm going to go here. The Steelers to take the points. Here on Sunday.
So just pulling out my weather forecast here for Highmark Stadium there on Sunday. They're talking about winds almost 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
By the time they're on Sunday, so you may not see many field goals kicked. I'll tell you that much of that if you're looking at it at that scenario.
Speaking of wind in Buffalo, remember the Patriots game against the Bills last year and in the wind where Mac Jones 3 passes, I believe, and they won. So I'm not saying it's going to be something like that. But,
I sure do remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're all going to take the Bills,
very low score.
But the majority of us think the Steelers keep it inside of that number there in Orchard Park. Tom, it's Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi on Fox as Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers take on Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. And Tom or Jerry, the boys are laying a touchdown at AT&T Stadium.
How about them Cowboys?
Why did you have to go to me first?
How about them Cowboys?
No, just
you stop it.
Just a random choice before the recording, Tom.
There you go.
Oh.
All right. Oh man. All right. So as I tried to move Nick Morgasen back into his spot.
That's why.
Okay, so look, let me be point blank simple. And I think I even told it to Nick last week on, I think, both Football Friday and our most recent ETV Sports. It makes me sick to my stomach to say it, but the Cowboys really are one of the best teams in the NFC right now. Would I put them against above the 49ers? Hell no. But they are still one of the best teams in the NFC. And actually, because we're talking about all the coaching changes, I mentioned it on ETV Sports. The Cowboys defense under Dan Quinn has been absolutely phenomenal. Even at the times where they have had their share of injuries, that Cowboys defense has definitely shown why it's one of the better defenses in the NFL. Dak Prescott has shown why he's an MVP candidate. And CeeDee Lamb, I think we just have to show the Week 17 game against the Lions to just show how good of a receiver he can be. I know that brings up some really bad flashbacks for you, Morgasen.
Yes, because no one expected him to go for 220 all-purpose yards
Losing your bet in the first is phenomenal.
on that first catch, or on that second catch, excuse me.
And then you got the Packers, which, credit, they made the playoffs, and Jordan Love has definitely shown some potential, flashed some potential during this season. Yeah, this one's not even close. And I can't believe I'm going to do this, especially in the first round of the playoffs. Lock of the week, baby. How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys?
So he's locking Dallas. Not only just going with him, he's locking him. Paul, what about you?
Yeah. I honestly think the Cowboys are one of the scariest teams in the entire playoffs, and I think that they could easily come out of the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I know the Cowboys have not lived up to the hype over the past several years. The history does not support them at all. But I really like what I've seen from this team, especially down the stretch. I think their defense has looked really good. Dak has arguably had the best year of his career this year. He's been fantastic. CeeDee Lamb has been a stud. I just love what I've seen from this entire Cowboys team. The Packers have also had a pretty good season. I mean, if you look at Jordan Love's year, he had a pretty good year. Finished right around 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It was a very solid season in his first year of being the full-time quarterback for the Packers. And along with that, they also had some ups and downs, with a bunch of guys going out, their receiving core getting hurt, their running backs getting hurt, all that kind of stuff. But the first year without Aaron Rodgers, we did give a little bit of a glimpse into a little bit of a bright future. They still have a little bit of ways to go before they're back on top. But I do think the Packers did pretty decently this year. But I think in Dallas, the Cowboys are ready for this. They're going to absolutely show out. So I'm taking the Cowboys at -7, and this is also my lock.
How about them Cowboys?
Are you kidding?
Zan?
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic NFC rivalry game that goes back obviously several years, maybe about 50 or 60 years. And this is a matchup that I think 5 weeks ago, if you would have asked all of us, oh, we're going to get this in the first round, I don't think people would have believed you. Obviously, the Packers were able to back their way into the postseason thanks to beating the Bears, of course, which made me pretty upset. But the Bears were able to secure the #1 pick, so there was a positive out of all of that. But to me, Dallas is simply the better team. The Packers have had a nice run. Jordan Love is a better football. The Packers have looked like a team that could maybe make some noise and pull off some upsets. And I actually am going to go with the surprise and say that the Packers can keep it inside this number. I think that Jordan Love does just enough to scare Dallas a little bit. Dallas may have to come from behind in this game. I think the Packers are playing some of the most inspired football that no one is currently talking about, but simply put, the Cowboys are the better team. They have an unbelievable offense, and as long as their defense can do just enough, I know that their defense can be suspect at times. They gave up over 40-plus points to a Seattle team that didn't make the postseason this year, but I just think, as all of us have alluded to so far, Dallas is one of the scariest teams in the NFC. That it could very well come out of the NFC and go to the Super Bowls. But for those reasons, I am going to go thumbs middle and take the Cowboys to win the game, but I think the Packers do enough to keep it inside that number and make it the most entertaining game in the entire first round. So there's my pick.
Yeah, Zan, you know what? I almost thought about doing the same thing, but something we echoed in one of the earlier games is why I'm going to take Dallas -7, and that is experience versus inexperience. And what I mean by that is Green Bay's inexperienced receivers, I think, is a big problem against Dallas's defense. And, to be fair, Jordan Love had a very good first full year. In fact, so much so that he was near perfect in his last 8 games, 18 touchdowns to 1 interception. He was only the 6th quarterback all time to do that in his final 8 games. But at the end of the day, he's young, and he's mistake prone. And again, those inexperienced receivers, I think this Cowboys pass rush in their secondary is going to be well positioned to make some key stops here. And the Packers' pass defense is messy. That's what it comes down to. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game, almost like a 31-20 sort of affair. But I'm going to take Dallas here to keep it rolling at home. And the thing that the Cowboys also have in their advantage in the NFC is they got a very favorable draw. They could have 2 home playoff games, maybe setting up with San Francisco if it ever comes down to that regard. So Dallas is in a favorable spot in that regard. And I think they're going to get the job done here on Sunday. So as much as I can't stand the boys, I think they're in a favorable spot here. I think they win and keep and advance to the divisional round next week.
How about them Cowboys?
And Zan, I actually
You're welcome, Jerry.
Zan, I actually want to throw one little counter out at you. Just now calling about, they gave up so many points to Seattle. If Green Bay had lost to Chicago in Week 18, Seattle would have been in the playoffs. So you can't just completely write off Seattle for what it is, because Seattle was a hell of a good team this season as well.
Mm-hmm.
They were, Tom, but to counter you, how is it that they're barely beating Arizona at Arizona when Arizona has nothing to play for? That doesn't make sense to me.
But the Cowboys lost to Arizona too early in the season, and you see how they turn things around.
Okay, that's a very fair point. But then again,
the Eagles lost to Arizona as well. Now the Eagles might be another case, but I can't deny that Arizona. I tried to trash them a little bit, but Arizona in the last month of the season, they tried to fight.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Philadelphia.
Positioning.
Ben, what do you have here?
Yeah, so it's obviously, like Zan mentioned, it's an old school rivalry game. It's 2 teams specifically, guys, that in the playoffs seem to choke a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of be in terms of like who really wants to take this. Now, the Cowboys have been absolutely unstoppable at home. I mean, I think that they're undefeated. I think this is a really good blueprint game for the Cowboys at home. Another thing, too, I just remember you guys were talking that Julio Alexander sprained his ankle at practice. And if he can't go against CeeDee Lamb, who's been absolutely going nuts as of late, I'm not saying this is going to be a long game for the Packers, but I think that this is a game where I think the Cowboys really – this line right here, I'm going to take this as my lock of the week as well. Even though I haven't been a massive believer in the Cowboys all year, I got to give props are due. And, Dak's obviously been playing really, really well this year. The Packers, I think they're kind of like Paul mentioned before, the Texans. I think they're a growing type team. After with Rodgers, it's just kind of a new type of thing with them. And just for them to even make the playoffs, I think was a win for them. So I think the Cowboys really are looking for, higher expectations in this playoffs, and I think they get it done here. So I take them with the cover, and I take them in my lock of the week.
How about them Cowboys?
Nick Morgasen?
Yeah, I like the Cowboys here too. I will admit one thing, and this is rare, Tom. I never admit. Jordan Love has actually been playing good football. And I trashed him for most of the season because, at the beginning, it looked a little bleak for a while where he was lost and didn't know what he was doing. I saw the turnaround against Minnesota, where he had I don't remember the exact amount of yards, but he had a huge game. I think he threw for 3 touchdowns in that game. And Jared Hall was a mess. Well, they obviously had to take him out.
You're talking about the New Year's game.
The New Year's game, right. And Jared Hall didn't even make it through the half. But
by the way, 24 for 33, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had an insane game. And that's when I knew he was really finding it. He was playing well a couple games before, but that was the breakout game that really showed against a rival that he could play. But they're not going to beat Dallas. They're not going to beat Dak. They are 8-0, I checked, at home this year. So they're undefeated at home. They're not going to change it now. The Cowboys are going to win. Jerry's going to be swinging from the rooftops with another victory. Stephen A. Smith's going to be wearing his cowboy hat with his cigar, and he's going to have his video pre-taped and ready to go when the last snap is over and they win. Take the money.
How about them Cowboys?
And did you say lock for you too, or?
Well, I already locked.
Oh, you locked one early. That's right. We so far have 3. Nick D, what about you?
Yeah, I love the Cowboys, and this is my lock of the week. Part of the reason is because the Cowboys are so much better at home than they are on the road. Another thing is the experience. Jordan Love is a rookie quarterback, and we all thought he stunk just 2 or 3 months ago. And the Cowboys the Packers barely snuck into the playoffs. I think that of all the games that's happening this weekend, this one might be this one's arguably the most lopsided in terms of ability of both teams. This just feels a little too easy.
So yeah, the Cowboys. Okay.
Yeah. I
How about them Cowboys?
So the majority of the guys are going to put their lock here on Dallas. Zan will be the lone wolf in taking the Packers plus the points there at AT&T Stadium.
Good
All
old
right, Nick
McCarthy
D.
Bowl.
What's that?
It's a good old McCarthy Bowl.
Yes.
Actually, one more thing. I actually have a message from Jerry to Green Bay. This is for Des Bryant.
Justice. Mike McCarthy's another guy that we're going to probably be talking about. If he doesn't make it to at least the NFC Championship game, I bet you his name's going to be up there as well, possibly in terms of coach position, especially with the position that the Cowboys are in, the favorable spot that they are. All right, Nick D, we ended with you there. Let's start with you here. It's Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark on NBC. As we head to Ford Field in Detroit, it is Matt Stafford and the Rams and Jared Goff and the Lions, and the Lions are a field goal favorite.
I definitely like the Lions. They're definitely a better team offensively. The Rams have certainly improved a lot throughout the year. I'm not sure I trust them. I would especially like the Lions if this line goes down to 2.5. It's not a very big line. And I think the Lions right now are really they're at home and they're just a better team, it seems like. Certainly a better offense. The Rams are okay, but they haven't impressed me very much lately. I mean, they almost lost to the Giants. They beat the Saints. They barely beat the Saints. They beat the Commanders. Almost came back to beat them. I'm not sure I'm really sold very much on the Rams.
So just looking up, Nick D, there's been almost no line movement at all in this game. If anything, his line opened at 3.5 and has gone down to 3. That's been the only movement.
Well, the one thing I'll say about the Rams is that they can generally play well against good teams, generally. But a 3-point spread is not that big, and the Lions have shown to be the superior team.
By the way, did you see the over/under? It's insane.
Oh,
I'm looking at it now.
It's got to be high, I think, because these are two very high-powered offenses. So
it's 51.5.
Oh, and I'll be honest with you, I would take the over on that in a second in this game, but I'll get to that when it's my turn. Tom, what about you?
Yeah, honestly, this could be a real back and forth matchup. And you want to talk about storylines. I mean, Nick Morgasen and I were raving about it. Just the script. I guess you want to call it the script writing of these playoffs.
I made the joke about there being a script.
And in this case, Matt Stafford versus Jared Goff, the two quarterbacks who were traded for one another. Just a couple of years ago, Rams, of course, winning the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford. Jared Goff, who came so close with the Rams, helping to reinvigorate Detroit, get them to their first division title in so long. So this is going to be a fun showdown. I think the Rams this year have definitely impressed. Matt Stafford has done a hell of a job alongside of his receivers, including Puka Nacua, who I think definitely has been one of the better standout young talents that we have seen in the NFL this season. That being said, I kind of implied it last week. We were heading into week 18. I think that week 17 loss to the Cowboys with controversy has a fire under this Detroit team. And I think that's going to be way too much for the Rams to go around. And especially if Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, just continues to pull off the numbers like he does, because I've got a weird feeling inside me, guys, that we could see a pretty, I don't know if I want to use the word legendary, but a pretty standout performance in this game from Amon-Ra. So I'm going to take the money on this one. I think the Lions cover and move on to a showdown with Dallas in Dallas once again in the divisional round.
Paul?
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome game. I mean, obviously, like we talked about, Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit. First time the Lions have been able to make it back to the playoffs since he was there. And the first time they were able to win the division since long before that. So this is definitely going to be an exciting game. The Rams have shown that they're a very interesting team this year. They've shown glimpses at times of the championship team from a couple of years ago, and then they've underperformed a little bit as well. And then there's the Lions, who have been completely dominant throughout the season. They've had their shares of ups and downs and stuff too. But I think the Lions are just a structurally sound team. They have a good defense. They got a good offense, good playmaking, good coaching. And this game being in Detroit, I like the Lions at -3. I think that they're going to end up coming away with it. I think, this game is set up for them to come away with the victory. I'm not too sold on the Rams to be able to pull this one off.
Zan?
Yeah, too many question marks here for the Rams for me to take them in the points, and I just think Detroit's a team of destiny. They haven't won anything in a long time. They haven't won a home playoff game since the 90s, since they were in the NFC Central. There's, a lot of high expectations in Detroit. Some people are talking Super Bowl. This is either a put up or a shut up kind of game for Detroit, because if they lose this one, it's going to be the same narrative over and over and over again. Oh yeah, Detroit couldn't get it done. So I think all the momentum is riding on them. The Rams kind of struggled as they got into the postseason. They played down to their competition the last month. Now, not only do I love the Lions to cover the field goal at home, but I love this to be my lock of the week. I think they move on and rematch Dallas in the divisional playoffs. So,
wow. So I have to give you this amazing nugget that the guys at CBS Sports HQ had earlier this week. So since the 2021 trade between the Rams and the Lions with Stafford and Goff, right? Stafford and Goff have 24 wins. They both have a 66% completion percentage. Goff's thrown 78 touchdowns to 41 turnovers. Stafford's 75 touchdowns to 41 turnovers. Their passer ratings, Goff's is 96.5. Stafford's is 95.8. Obviously, the one difference is the Super Bowl that Stafford's got there with the Rams.
That's almost a mirror.
Right? Yeah. They're almost mirrored images of one another. Yeah. Now, as far as this game goes, I got to tell you, this is my favorite game of the 7 that we have here on this weekend, because I think this has a chance to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. It's back and forth shootout football. But I got to tell you, I'm going with an upset special here. I love the Rams in this game because their offense is healthy and the Lions are not. The one thing that was lost last week in that Lions game in Week 18 was the injury to Sam Laporta. I think that is a huge deal because he has been outstanding there, the rookie tight end there for the Lions. And, yeah, the great connection that Goff's got to Amon-Ra St. Brown is great. But in this kind of matchup, I think you need your full complement of guys. And we know the Rams have that with Nakua, with obviously Cooper Kupp and others there. Kyron Williams, who I know Ben's brought up a lot, and we've brought his name up a lot here this season. He's been outstanding too. And, the Rams are averaging nearly 30 points per game in their last 7 contests. The Lions defense is in the bottom 10 in the NFL in points allowed. And fourth worst in defensive red zone efficiency, and also their defense is landing below the NFL average in sacks and takeaways here. So I think this is like 35-27. I think this is really one of the highest scoring games of the week. I think one of my more favorable plays in this one is the over, but I think the Rams, who were at 1.3-6, and I said had a very still favorable path to get into the playoffs. Well, they got there, and I think they're going to keep it going here. So I'm going with the Rams. Forget getting just the 3 points. I think they're winning this game outright there at Ford Field on Sunday. Ben?
Ben, you're muted.
Sorry about that, guys. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom for the playoff scenarios, because theoretically the Rams might have not have had the chance to play against Matt Stafford's former team, and fortunate enough that made it happen. So I want to thank Tom for the scenario, because I didn't know specific in terms of how they would get in and who they play. Yeah. But regardless of, I can't wait for this game. This is, like Johnny mentioned, I think this is my favorite game of the weekend. You got Matt Stafford's coming back to Detroit. You have the Lions obviously being in the playoffs for like the first time in forever. And the Lions, obviously, without Sam Laporta, I mean, he's really been Jared Goff's main target for the last couple of weeks, I think. especially just a guy across the field. The Rams, obviously, like Nick mentioned earlier, they've been kind of a weird team. They've had some really good glimpses of flashes, and they haven't been. But I will say about the Rams is they've really turned it up ever since they've gotten Kyron Williams back, who I've been talking about before. The running game obviously has really helped a lot. Cooper Kupp's starting to really turn things up a little bit too. So looking at this game, I think it's going to be a shootout game. I'm going to go with Johnny here. I thought I was going to be the lone wolf for this one, but I'm going to go with the Rams at +3, another upset. I think the Lions obviously are they're really playing well all season. But I think it's who rides hot at the right time. And I think that the Rams with Matt Stafford, I think there's going to be a little bit of hungriness to him going into his own place. I think that he finds a way to win this game.
By the way, I just want to clarify one thing. Sam Laporta did tell reporters on Thursday that he is optimistic about playing on Sunday.
Well, in terms of like how is he going to be specifically? Is he going to be 100%? You know, is he going to be limited?
I don't think he's going to be 100% at all.
So,
there's no way.
100%.
Yeah, it's a big
So
deal.
I mean, in this, like I mentioned, this could go really either way. Both teams are playing really, really well late, but I think that I'm going to take the coaching too. Sean McVay specifically, guys, too. He's been in the playoffs a lot as of recently than Dan Campbell. So you just don't know specifically that coaching stuff specifically on that either. So that's another thing to take into account.
All right, Nick, wrap us up here. What do you got?
Yeah, I like the Lions here. Like what other one had been saying about the Rams, there's question marks offensively. And the only one who I think is really the lead of the offense is Stafford. He's really the guy that's got to lead that offense. Either he's got to have a 300-yard game, and Tom's heard me say this a million times over and over again. Either he's going to throw for 3 touchdowns and have 300 yards, or he's going to have a really bad game, and the whole offense is going to struggle. And on the Lions side of things, Gibbs and Montgomery need to have a good game as a combo to keep this game going offensively. Their running game is very important. I know you have guys like Brown and those guys that are the offense. Laporta is not going to be 100%. So they're going to have to make up the offense in the running game. That's going to be the biggest thing that they're going to have to do. I like the Lions just because I like Dan Campbell. I think, like Tom said, they have some fire after that loss against the Cowboys and getting that missed call. So I like the Lions to cover here.
Might give us the revenge battle.
Yep.
So we'll find out. And then we wrap up Super Wildcard Weekend with, in my opinion, the toughest game of the week to pick. Ben Kruse, it is in fact a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters, and Laura Rutledge special on ESPN and ABC as the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium, and those Eagles are a field goal favorite.
If you asked me, guys, like early on this season, I would have gone easily with the Eagles with just kind of the way it's been. But like Tom mentioned about the Eagles, I remember when I was in Florida, I went to go see the Bucs 2 weeks ago against the Saints for a chance for them to win the division. And they didn't look good, especially offensively. They really struggled, and even pretty much all the 3 quarters that they played. But that Eagles team right now, guys, is just, oh my God, like I don't know what happened. Jalen Hurts has obviously had his inconsistencies. Their defense, their secondary looks horrific ever since even they brought in Matt Patricia, who I don't know specifically why they brought him in. AJ Brown obviously is banged up. Devontae Smith's banged up. This is obviously, like Johnny mentioned, that's true. That's the toughest game to obviously gauge because you think at one point you're like, oh, the Eagles are the better team. But in terms of like at the end, like the Eagles just not shown to me specifically that this is an easy cover. This is going to be a battle, I think, between both teams. And I think another thing too, guys, we talk about weather impacting games. I think this game might have some rain. So that might obviously make a little bit of a specific impact in this one as well. So the Bucs, I think, have a pretty good defense. I think they'll be able to match up, but I don't know about Baker. They only had 9 points against the Panthers last week. So, I mean, it's just tough. But I'm going to go with the Eagles here to take the 3. I don't think it's going to be great for them, but I think they find a way to get away with this game specifically. And I think the DeAndre Swift has a big one. I think that they're going to run the football a lot, and they're going to essentially keep the time of possession, and I think that they pull away. So give me the Eagles to cover, but it's not going to be pretty, and I wouldn't be surprised if anybody picks against that because I think at this point in time, the Eagles have just not played good football at all.
Nick Morgasen, I'm very curious to see where you're going at with this. Go for it.
All right, Tom, grab that banner that you made because that's where I'm going to be going here.
Oh, I not only do I have a banner, I think I just got a message on my phone. But hold on, I think there's a little sound attached to it. So.
Yes, so fraud alert. This is a massive fraud alert by the Eagles. They lost to the Giants last week. No offense to Giant fans, but that was a bad loss. And on top of it, they lost to the Cardinals the week before. They are in the worst. You know how they say momentum is key when you're playing games? They are in the shitter right now. I can't say it any other nicer way. Jalen Hurts with the middle finger injury, which looked horrible on the sideline during the game.
What's he going to do when he drives?
Yeah, exactly. It's oops. But like Ben said, you have wide receiver injuries. You have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. This is a recipe for disaster in the worst way. And they haven't been playing great on the road. Baker, like you said, Ben, only 9 points. But I just think like his resiliency and his passion for the position, I think he's going to find a way to will this game out in some way. I think the Eagles go out in the first round. I think heads are going to roll in Philadelphia after they won 10 games this season. Upset special, Buccaneers win.
It's another name we're going to be talking about if that is indeed the case there, Nick Sirianni. Nick D?
Yeah, I like the Bucks. The Eagles right now have the reverse momentum, especially if this line goes up to 3.5. If this line goes up to 3.5, I'll be even more confident in it. I mean, the Eagles haven't – the thing is, towards the end of the season, the Eagles haven't failed to amaze me at all. I think they're – what are they, 1-4 in their last 1-3 in their last 4 games?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, so and which were supposedly easy games. They haven't failed in this. They haven't failed to just suck in every single one of these games. It feels like it's going to happen again, and they feel like the Mets did in 2022.
They lost 5 out of their last 6. They were really good
for most of the season. Then in September, their whole season went down the shitter. That's what it seems like with the Eagles this year.
Well, just to clear that up, they've lost 5 out of their last 6.
Yeah, I was going to say 5.
Another thing, too, the Eagles played the Giants twice. And the Eagles, the game that they won, they essentially were up, I think, by 10 points. Or
they almost blew it.
And they almost blew it. The Giants were able to have a backdoor cover on them. And that pretty much, to me, that's why this game was so tough. But I think it's going to come down to, do I take Jalen Hurts or Baker Mayfield in playoffs? And I'm going to have to lean towards Jalen, but this is not like a confident pick.
Even with the injury?
Yeah, I would.
What about you, Tom?
Look, I'm in agreement with Nick on the fraud alert. This is a really disastrous kind of look for this Philadelphia team. You just said losing 5 of the 6, and actually, I'm going to bring up the earlier point of the earlier debate that Zain and I were having, because one of those teams was the Seahawks. So if you're going to give all that crap about the Seahawks to, who were we debating that about? That was
with Green Bay and Seattle?
Yeah. About that. Then I think we got to have that same conversation about the Eagles, because not only did they lose to the Seahawks, as you mentioned, they lost to the Cardinals in Week 17. This is why they're in the wild card, because they ended up losing that game. They lost to Dallas in an absolutely blown-out fashion on December 10th. They barely squeaked by Dallas in November. It's been an absolute collapse.
By the way, if Dallas is on a luck streak right now and they win the Super Bowl, they can look back to those couple of weeks where Eagles threw them the one game and obviously getting the call against the Lions. So if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's on them because they got the luck towards them.
And yes, definitely we have the injury to Jalen Hurts. But guys, don't forget, A.J. Brown also went down during that Giants game holding his knee, and it did not look good.
That looked terrible.
It seemed like he is going to play, but you also have to keep in mind what A.J. Brown has also been doing off the field in his comments, that something is wrong in that locker room. And
that was a mistake. He should have never said it.
We can talk about on the field versus off the field, one not affecting the other. I say there are times where it does affect. And I think right now, whatever turmoil is going on in that locker room is affecting what's going on the field. And if this Eagles team cannot win this weekend, Johnny, like you were kind of alluding to, I think Nick Sirianni is getting the boot. And that being said, obviously the Buccaneers won the NFC South. They didn't look great the last couple of weeks. They barely squeaked by. We talked about how weak the NFC South division is, but I will not sit here with the Baker slander because it was on Christmas Eve when they beat the Jaguars 30-12. What were we saying? We were singing the praises of Baker Mayfield and what he had done. We were singing the praises of Baker Mayfield and how he has revitalized himself in that Tampa Bay offense and how he has held his own. And I'll be damned with the Baker slander on that one because he definitely has played. If he gets a extension, probably a short-term one with Tampa Bay, I think he's earned it. And he's going to further earn it here because I was willing to swallow some pride, when picking the Cowboys my lock of the week, flipping, as much as I've been seeing the Chiefs' negative momentum and didn't want to pick them against the Dolphins, but for the weather purposes and Dolphins, I ain't swallowing my pride and Giants bias here. I am joining with you guys, upset city. Bucks are winning at home. Eagles are going to have Eagles are going to go down as one of the biggest disappointments in NFL history.
Paul, what do you say?
Yeah, I honestly completely agree. I think that the Eagles have been on such a downfall over the past several weeks and the entire second half of the season, honestly, that it's tough to take them. And there's also the news that came out today that Jalen Hurts hasn't made a throw since last week's game. He hasn't been able to pick up a football. So, I mean, it's already Thursday. That's not good news. I mean, they play on Monday. He's going to try to tough it out and play, but how effective will he be? Will AJ Brown be any bit effective? And the rest of the team has just been choking all season long. And the Buccaneers have been surprisingly good. The Buccaneers have done what they've had to do to win, and same with Baker. So I like the Buccaneers in this one too. I like the Buccaneers to win it. I like them at +3. I think that they're going to come away with this game, especially in Tampa Bay.
Zan?
Wait.
I think Tony
There he
Real
is.
is stuck again.
Yeah, you got me now.
There you go. Yep.
There we go.
Right. So it's the last game of the week, and it's the big trap. I'm not gonna do it. I they have a ton of injuries. I know that Jalen Hurts looks very depleted, but you cannot tell me that Tampa Bay has looked absolutely horrible for the entire minus a couple of really nice wins. And last week against Carolina, one of the worst teams in the NFL, that they could beat a team that was just in the Super Bowl a year ago. I'm not buying any of you guys. I'm picking the Eagles to win this game and to cover for the spread and to move on. They're simply the better team, regardless of how many struggles they've had or that they've done. Tampa Bay has no business being in the spot, and the Eagles will prove it Monday night with a big road win. That's what I think.
I have the Eagles too, Zan. So
There we go. So Zan's also going to take the money with Philadelphia. So, literally, any other opponent that the Eagles would be playing, I'd be going the other way easily. But when I look, the Bucks are just, oh my gosh, because that's the thing. So I try and look at these two teams, and I'm trying to see is there any reason to take one more than the other? And I know the Eagles are so bad, but the Bucks are so inconsistent. I mean, I know
that's what I think too.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, think about it. So 2 weeks ago, they were defeated soundly by a mediocre Saints team, and then last week they didn't score. They failed to score a touchdown against the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have those moments where you put up 30 points against the Jaguars.
Well, let's be clear, guys. Let's be in agreement on one thing. Depending on how the other two NFC games plays out, whoever wins this game here is losing to San Francisco or Dallas in the next round.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
Well, I think If it's in Dallas, then I'm taking Dallas. But I think with Philly and Dallas, it's really their rivalry. It's a division game. If Eagles aren't at their top peak with all their guys healthy, I'm taking Dallas. But if it's healthy, it could be a coin flip.
No, I would take Dallas. Dallas is the home team no matter what in the second round if they win and advance on. So you have to take them. That's why I think they have a very favorable path to get to at least the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I think by default I gotta go with Tampa. I think this is gonna be more. I think this pick is going to be more anti-Philly than pro Tampa. I think that's really the only way I can do it because, Philly's defense was 31st against the pass. Tampa's was 29th this season. I guess you could also say, though, too, that Todd Bowles does know how to game plan for Jalen Hurts, if you look at his 3 meetings between them. So I think by default, I got to go with the majority here. I'm going to take Tampa plus the 3 and win this one outright. I don't really have any more a better explanation than that. It's just really it's almost like you almost try to pick also like which team has the fewer flaws, and right now it's Tampa. Even though their last 2 games really give you a lot of question marks too. Yeah, Ben?
I have a question. So I'm curious in terms of the line in this game in September, in terms of obviously how many people in here picked Philly because of the way that obviously they were playing. And now you look at it now, the fact that pretty much everybody's picking Tampa Bay, which deservedly so because you see the way that Philly's been playing. It's almost like a microcosm of the way that Philly's season's been going, where essentially it was at high peak early on the season, and then like something just clicked off. And I think it was the hiring Matt Patricia because it has to be because their defense essentially just completely fallen off.
It's either that or the fact that they lost Jonathan Gannon and Shane Stetson. Don't kid yourself. The reason why the teams don't really repeat is because either they lose key players or they lose key coordinators, and that's what happened to Philadelphia. Shane Stetson gone, Jonathan Gannon, who's done a pretty nice job over there in Arizona. I mean, that's part. I think that's a big reason.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. But this game's also going to be cool to watch because it's so hard to figure out which one's going to pull it out. But somebody's going to have to down there at Raymond James on Monday night. Well, we still have our wolf spread plays to make here, so let's get to that here for Super Wild Card Weekend. Of course, the rules are we get 2,000 fantasy dollars. Everybody's got to make at least $1,500 worth of wagers. I know it came off a phenomenal week last week where I had about a $1,300 profit, more than doubled my total for the season here. So I'm going to go with 5 plays here, $400 plays. I'm going to use my entire $2,000 bankroll here. I got 5 plays for Super Wild Card Weekend. I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 4.5. I'm confident in them winning. I'm getting 10 points with Pittsburgh in Buffalo on wolf spread, so I will gladly take the 10 points there. I think will be a lower scoring game because of the weather there. I got the over in the Packer-Cowboy game. I think there will be points. It's at 50.5. I think it's going to go north of that, and I think most of that will be done by the Dallas Cowboys. And then, I will go with 2 money line plays and try and make a good amount of money on this. I'm going to take the Rams on the money line over the Lions, and I am going to take the Buccaneers on the money line too over Philly. They're both getting 3 points, but I think they're both winning these games outright there on Sunday night and Monday night. So those are my 5 plays. They're $400 wagers. We're going to try and make a big profit here. I already got a $2,400 profit after this regular season. We'll try and keep it going here into the playoffs. Nick Morgasen?
All right, so I took the Texans in the upset. I just like the way Stroud is playing, and the Browns have been good. We just don't know what to expect in the playoffs. I have the Chiefs minus 4.5. That was my lock. I just think the cold weather is going to destroy the Dolphins. Bills minus 10. It's a steep line, but I think they'll find a way to cover just because of the whole quarterback situation, Mason Rudolph. I also have the Cowboys. That could have been a lock for me, but I just like the Chiefs number better, just because I think that it's not the Packers' time right now. And 8-0 at home this year, and then I have the Lions minus 3.
And Nick D.
All right, so I have the Browns minus 2. We got into that. The Bills minus 10, Dallas minus 7, which was my lock of the week. The Lions minus 3, and I took the over in the Rams-Lions game.
And what was that number again?
51.5.
Yeah, that almost seems to be a better one than the one I took, but that'll work. Tom?
All right, so I have at least one bet in each of the 6 games. And in fact, one game I did do my usual double bet. And in that one, it was the double bet this week was the Buccaneers-Eagles game, in which I am taking 250 fantasy dollars each on the Buccaneers, the plus 135 money line, and the plus 3 spread. I have my lock of the week, of course, with Dallas Cowboys. I put 250 fantasy dollars on that -7 spread. I have my 2 big wagers, 450 fantasy dollars on the Lions money line and $400 on the Browns money line. And then something unusual for me, and I kind of teased it a bit when we were talking about the Chiefs-Dolphins game. I have not 1, but 2 over-under plays in which I am going to take in the Chiefs-Dolphins game. I am going to take under 43.5 points. And in the Bills-Steelers game, I'm actually going to go under 35.5 points. I don't think either one of those games is going to be too big of a scoring matchup.
Yeah, those are 2 good plays, Tom. I like that. And you're out of the hole, right? You're back in the green.
I am officially out of the red. Yes.
Excellent. Let's keep you out. Let's keep you out of that. Paul?
Yeah, I like the Chiefs Dolphins under 43.5 also. Feel like it's not going to be a high scoring game. The Buccaneers money line at plus 135. I like the Chiefs at minus 4.5. The Steelers at plus 10 as well. It's an even bigger number than our number was. So I like that one even more. And then the Cowboys at -7.
Awesome. Zan?
Yeah, so I had a pretty banner with last month on Wolf spreads. If I do say so myself, going into this week, I have an $853 profit, and thanks to a push in the Seattle-Arizona game, I was still able to end the regular season on a positive note, so I hope it continues going into the postseason. And as I like to do, I'm using my tactic of buying points here. So my first play, Houston Texans buying 2 points to get it to +4, 250 to win 147. Very similar to Tom, I'm doing a double bet in the Kansas City Chiefs Miami Dolphins game. I like an alternate under of 45.5. That's $100 to win 67. I love the Chiefs on the -2.5 spread, 350 to win 233. I love the Buffalo Bills in -8 at $300 to win 200. I love the Packers in +9, 300 to win 200. I like the Rams to cover an alternate number of +5, 350 to win 226. And the final play of the weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, -1, 350 to win 233. And those are my wild card weekend plays presented by Wolf Spreads.
And Ben?
Yeah, so I have 3 plays for this weekend. I obviously going with Tom and Paul's train with the under and the 43.5 of the Chiefs Dolphins game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in this one. I just think that with the weather impacted specifically, I think the Chiefs will pull it out, but I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I have the Bills money line at -550. I know that obviously with the weather impacting that one will probably be pretty close, but I like the Bills here specifically. And then I have the Texans at +2 at -110 with the spread. I think they're going to have an upset in that game, and it's going to be a good one. But I'm going to like the Texans to pull it out.
There we go. And that'll put a wrap on Super Wild Card Weekend as we inch our way closer to Super Bowl 58 there in about a month's time. I tell you, this weekend's going to be nuts, and we'll have a clearer picture, and we'll see if we have any more coaching moves that happen between now and next week. So we'll be back with you again for the divisional round. But just, of course, your friendly reminders to make sure to follow us across all of our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ETB Network. Of course, also check us out at youtube.com/ETB Network, where if you like our Football Fridays and all of our content, leave us a like. If you're new, to hit that subscribe button. And, of course, make sure you have your notifications set so you know when all of our stuff is going to be coming out. Of course, etbpodcasts.com, our website, is where you can find great stuff about all of our shows here on the podcast network, as we've got more also in the works. And, of course, if you cannot watch us, make sure to listen to us wherever you get your favorite podcast on any platform. We are there for you. So, guys, enjoy Super Wild Card Weekend. It should be super.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Absolutely. 3 full days of excitement, and then we'll be back with you next Friday for the divisional round as well as we wrap up another fine year here of Football Friday content. So for Nick Morgasen, Nick DiMartino, Tom Albano, Ben Kruse, Paul Lombardi, and Zain Bando, I'm Johnny Montalbano. Everybody have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the games, and we'll catch you all again next week.
Cheers, fellas.